Hi, good afternoon. This is Jeff. Yan. Salamat sa mga nandito ngayon. Facebook Live, YouTube Live. Magandang hapon sa buong Pilipinas. Good morning, good evening kung saan man kayo sa mundo ngayon. Sino yung mga nasa live stream ngayon? Salamat sa pagdating. Thank you for coming. Hi, Auntie Glo. Thank you for coming. And, yan. Marami tayong pag-uusapan ngayon. It is my day off and we are back for our music talks. Music talks. Yan. I hope okay ang audio ko dito. Please tell me otherwise kung may feedback or kung ano man ang naririnig niyong iba. Wag lang multo ha. Set up ko lang yung Kumu. So, yan ang ano natin, background. Something subtle para makapag-concentrate tayo sa pag-uusapan natin. Anyway, ngayon na nakikita nyo yung YouTube video na yan sa aking screen, yan ang gusto kong pag-usapan ngayon. Lately, I've receiving sa aking Reddit, sa aking YouTube, and sa aking feeds, random feeds, something na nagte-trend which na-research ko for a year now. And isa to sa mga issues about music. Of course, pag-uusapan natin is about music. And I'm just more than a week bothered na ako. Actually, nag-release ako ng live stream ko earlier, last week I think, about etong issue na to. And it keeps on coming na may, yun nga, dahil sa feeds, and ito nga ang mga nare-receive ko. By the way, the title of the video we are going to react is about why today's music sucks. Everything wrong with today's music. Nasa channel of Michael Noland, The Bottom Line. And compliments to the video maker himself, Mr. Michael Noland. Thank you for this very insightful opinion, which I think is really happening in the music industry, in the music scene, to those who have been, aywan ko, I am affected with this trend na nangyayari ngayon. By the way, if you are new here, please don't forget to follow this video, follow my Facebook page, Discover Soothing Music. Although sa profile ko ako nag-live ngayon. Also, those who are new in my YouTube channel, Discover Soothing Music, please don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to my channel. Press the top notification bell para ma-update kayo sa lahat ng mga videos na ina-update ko. Ma-update kayo sa mga live stream. Update kayo sa mga soothing music which I upload 2 to 3 times a week. Music compliments from YouTube Studio, YouTube Audio Studio, and NCS.io. So, ang pag-usapan natin is yung, first of all, before I play this video, gusto ko lang i-recall yung topic last week na just put it in your minds and in your thoughts na does music not motivate kung sino ang gumagamit ng music, di ba? Kasi bothered ako dun sa pinaka first statement niya na it tells na meron siyang favorite songs na ini-explain niya sa mga inaano niya as his favorite, pero lately nga parang hindi na niya naisip about music being a motivator or being a motivation tool. And itong video, could this be one of the reasons? Kaya ating panoorin para makita nyo kung what I am trying to point out, and what about with this trend na pumapasok sa feed ngayon. The oldest video that I've researched about this was 4 years ago. Posted 4 years ago, and parang hindi pa napapansin eh. For this year, meron ng nabibilang na eh. And I don't know where to search for the cause or where to blame. I don't want to blame, pero I think it's one of the answers is in this video. So let's start with the video and start natin.
Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, Michael Noland, and tonight we're going to be discussing why today's popular music, well, sucks. You know, I don't think it's really that big of a secret that a whole lot of people have been disappointed.
Yan. Why music sucks nga daw. Why today's music sucks. Ayan, yan ang word niya. Which is, di ba? Do you think so? Kung comparing with music today and music noon, why does music today sucks? Comment kayo. Mag-message lang kayo kung ano. Let me read your comments post natin para at least, diba, sama kayo sa interaction na to.
Popular music that has been coming out in the last 20 years. But you know, this is a trend that if you take a look at the history of rock and pop rock music, that I would say started around the early 80s. It was
Ang ginamit niya palang genre dito, to inform you, ang ginamit niyang genre, base genre is pop and rock. So the discussion goes around with the genre na pop rock or pop rock. So it's pop rock or pop rock. So when we say pop, popular songs. Rock, of course, rock songs, classical rock by, let's say, Beatles, ganun. And pop, of course, alam niyo naman ang pop, Michael Jackson, mga ganyan. Okay?
Time that the Police released their last album, Synchronicity, in a time period where that album was the only really rock piece that could possibly be considered as equal as to some of the output that, well, Michael Jackson and Prince was putting.
Yan. So, ang kinonsider niyang last album for rock is the album published by The Police. Ngayon, in congruence or in comparison with pop albums like what Michael Jackson, pop siya kasi popular nga. So he is under the pop genre, and Prince, so pop rock naman si Prince kasi may mga pop siya and meron siyang mga rock.
Putting out at that time. It was at that time we saw an increase and a spotlight on the individual artist. Now there were still highlights.
Yan, within the 20-year period na kanyang pinag-uusapan is lumabas na rin ang indie music. Okay?
During the remainder of the 80s into the early 90s. We had U2 occasionally give us a masterpiece, and of course, Metallica's input into the heavy rock genre cannot be understated. Of course, as we moved into the 90s, the introduction of grunge seemed to show us that we still had heights to accomplish in rock and roll. Of course,
Yan, in rock and roll, so during the 80s, what he explained earlier was the prevalence of Metallica. It is a deep metal rock. It is still considered rock and roll under the subgenre metal. And ano na yung isang album na sinabi niya kanina? It was U2. U2 is a pop rock. U2 yung if you know the song With or Without You. And of course with Metallica, Enter Sandman, yan. Although 90s na kasi ang Enter Sandman. Meron siyang previous albums na talagang metal talagang dating.
Of course, some of the better bands during this period were Pearl Jam, Smashing Pumpkins, Alice in Chains, and Stone Temple Pilots.
What he mentioned now is yung albums by a rock genre.
With MTV then introducing rock bands unplugged, a lot of acoustic-based artists. Dave Matthew became popular, matching some of the rock bands that were starting to occur on the scenes, such as Green Day. Of course, here we see bands becoming more popular by the moment, such as the Goo Goo Dolls arriving on the scene. Of course, around this time period,
Google Dolls is still uh, uh, ano pa rin sila ngayon, active pa rin sila ngayon, although recently this year namatay ang kanilang drummer. So maybe in a few months makikita natin kung sino ang magiging replacement na drummer nila, which is ang lead vocals niya ang lead, or let's say uh, yung leader nila is ang previous drummer ng Nirvana, which is nag-introduce ng grunge under the subgenre of rock and roll.
the single artist is back. But this time, instead of getting a Prince or a Michael Jackson, we get Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, and a young chap named Bieber. You know,
Yan, so during the papasok na ng 2000 actually, yan na, pumasok na sila Britney Spears, pumasok na sila Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake was a member of a boy band, pop, yan mga yan, pop. And of course, Justin Bieber. Yan.
it reminds me of woodworking. You've got
As you have observed, no, what he mentioned earlier was on rock. Pero sa ngayon, ang mini-mention na ngayon was pop.
two guys here. Both of them are gonna make a rocking chair, right? This guy over here makes a rocking chair for grandma. He's got a plan. It's simple. He goes down to the lumber yard, he assembles it together, he does a basic sanding job, puts a little stain on it. Grandma loves it, and when she passes away, it's the first thing thrown out in the garbage. But this guy over here, he goes out into the forest. He chooses the wood he wants. He chops the tree down. He mills it. He lovingly assembles the pieces. He varnishes it. And this time, when Grandma passes away, this chair is passed on as an heirloom. What's the difference between these two approaches? This is an assembly approach, where this is the approach of a true artisan. Well, you know, to me, good rock music, good pop rock music, and good pop music is just the same. But that gets us right.
Tama naman eh. On the fundamental genres with rock or pop rock, walang pinagkaiba yan pag pinatugtog sa radyo. As long as it is popular, as it is being patronized by its listeners, and syempre with the presence of YouTube by its viewers, there is nothing wrong ngayon. Pare-parehas lang lahat yan, ang pop and rock.
Right back to the original question, doesn't it? Why does today's music suck? All right.
Pero bakit nga, 'di ba? Why today's music sucks pa rin?
Right, so first of all, let's take a look at how the music was approached, say back in the 60s.
This is just one clue kung bakit na with those feed na pumapasok sa akin uh in my daily activities as a in my social media. Ito ang pumapasok. Bakit pa rin, 'di ba? So with what I have discussed earlier last week nga yung nawalan siya ng motivation. So even with the presence of pop or rock or pop rock, 'di ba? Ano ba talaga ang cause or ano ba talaga ang nakikita nating mga reasons?
We can use one or two albums here as an example. We can either use the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds or the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Now, the reason I'm bringing up these two albums is because the history of the recording of these albums is quite well known. We know what the artist went through to achieve the sounds on these records. And
Ang ginamit niyang first reason niya is about the recording of the let's say pioneer artists for that era where nagre-record sila ng songs na maganda ang sound quality.
one of the things that remains so very clear on listening to these albums to this very day is the wonderful audio textures that
Yan. So, ang isang consideration niya is yung magandang audio. Wait lang. Ang magandang audio na textures. So, yung audio, hindi ganun kagasgas, hindi ganun ka distorted or hindi ganun ka let's say pino. Maganda yung pagka-record. Uh, as a musician myself, kapag nagre-record, kapag tumutugtog kami and we tend to record yung mga tinutugtog namin, we make sure na yung audio na pumapasok sa record is maganda, hindi sabog, hindi siya distorted, hindi siya fuzzy. It should be clear, parang ganyan. Which noon nung nagre-record kami 20 years ago, we record some original songs for my previous band. For example, yung drums. When we recorded the drums and wala pang digital drums noon, wala pang electronic drums noon. It is a purely acoustic setup na you know the drums. When you say drums, of course, ang papasok pa rin sa utak natin is yung pinapalo with the tom-toms, with the acoustic snare, with the kick, with the hi-hat and the cymbals, 'di ba? Hindi siya electronic, we call it acoustic drums. And yun yung mismong nire-record. And it is recorded na on a high quality, which is kapag ipi-play mo na yan, maganda yung pagka-record niya. Not like now, no? Na we use e-pads, drum pads, electronic drums. If you have noticed yung last na I have one of my videos in YouTube na nag-gig kami during the weekend where we use drum pads. Yung drum pads, meron ng pre-recorded na mga sounds which I say iba pa rin. It is not, its quality is far lower than with talagang acoustic drums. Now that is one factor na ini-explain ni Sir Michael Noland.
that you hear when you listen to this music. With the Beach Boys, this was almost a one-man job. Of course, he had a massive tank to drive into war.
Yan. Sa kanila, kahit isa lang ang gumawa noon, kahit isa lang ang gumawa ng audio. Pero ngayon, talagang marami ang kailangang gumawa ba.
He had the wonderful Wrecking Crew to record a whole lot of that instrumentation. So he had the finest musicians on the planet to record the recording tracks. He was the finest songwriter America had to offer, and the best producer, if you ask me. And of course, his band, when they would come in to record their vocals, were some of the best singers America had to offer. Meanwhile, shortly after, in Britain, we have George.
Yan, before we go to his opinion on Britney, before talaga, when you watch an artist, a band, or a performer, mapapansin nyo talaga there is talent. Okay? Not just on the performer, kasi when you say a concert or a gig, or just a simple na may tumutugtog, ang kwento behind that event is also with the production. So there is an equal foot for the performer and the producer, yung production. So hindi lang magaling yung tumugtugtog, magaling rin yung, let's say, yung sound engineer. Kasi alam niyang i-blend lahat ng magaganda, alam niya kung ano yung kilanting na kailangan, alam niya kung ano yung bass na kailangan, alam niya yung napapansin nyo when you have a radio, or with your iPods, or with anything about players, meron tayong equalizer, right? So there is a mid, a treble, a high. Yan, maganda yung pagkatimpla nun. Hindi siya digital nun, analog pa lang nun. So yung gumagawa ng analog, gumagawa ng nagbe-blend for those sounds na kanyang nakukuha by the performer, and with the capability of the equipment, maganda ang kanyang napoproduce.
George Martin, the world's greatest producer, if you ask me, teaming up with a united Lennon and McCartney with brand new material, and they're still writing material as they're recording this album. Lennon's imaginative mind demanding new approaches that he couldn't articulate, and Paul's artistic approach being more direct, and him working more in conjunction with George Martin. Of course, this would continue and be very evident on side 2 on the Beatles album Abbey Road. But you know, when I listen to today's music, I don't hear those textures. I don't.
Talaga. Actually, kung makikinig ka ng yung vinyl, plaka noon, ang gaganda ng sounds noon ng pagka-record. Although there is this lo-fi sound of the turntable, which is yun nga, hindi naman maalis yun because of the technology noon compared with the technology now na pwede nating tanggalin yun. Ang problema, the problem is yung quality of the sound noon, kung gaano let's say kung gaano kakapal, ngayon sobrang nipis na
don't hear the air around the instruments anymore, and there's a very good reason for that. First of all, we need to get back to the days of radio. You see, back in the day, radio made its money just like television, just like YouTube, as a matter of fact, on commercials. Now, I can imagine before they started getting into compression and all of that, they probably had an engineer who actually cranked a volume knob there at the station when commercials came on. We've all complained how loud commercials are. One of the reasons that commercials are so much louder than, say, the television program you're accustomed to watching is because of compression. You see, in the studio, when they master these commercials,
Yan, about the compression naman, sinasabi niya, noon, no, we had tapes, cassette tapes. So, ang difference lang ng cassette tapes noon was yung length nung kung long playing siya. So, yung kung gaano kadaming kanta ang pwede mong ilagay for each cassette tape. Now, ang ginagawa nila compared with digital uh, products ngayon, as far as ma-compress nila ang kanta, they could give you kahit 100 songs for yung sa CD noon, 'di ba? Hanggang naging MP3 noon. So, but expect, syempre, the more songs na being compressed and being placed into a CD, 'di ba? What do you expect with the quality? Bababa din, 'di ba? Not like noon with cassette tapes. Ang cassette tapes nga noon bibenta sila. The pina ang pinaka pwede nilang ilagay for a cassette tape para lang maganda ang sound is one song, 'di ba? And then ang at most songs for a cassette tape is for one side is 8 songs. 8 to 10 songs only. Parang ganun. Pero hindi compromise ang quality niya. Pero for with CDs noon during the early 2000 minus 5 to 10 years, yun.
they run these commercials through compressors. Now, you can bet your bottom dollar.
And what he is trying to explain now, dahil commercialized na nga ang digital era, which is comprised of bytes. So, kahit ba ang liit ng file for each song, basta tumunog lang, 'di ba? Gagamitin at gagamitin na wala nang pakialam yung when they use it kunyari sa commercial, basta tumunog kahit na gasgas na or kahit na compromise na ang quality as long as nagamit nila yung song dahil binayaran lang nila. Ang hindi nila napapansin is yung quality, and I have another topic soon about lossless quality and may effect about yung pagtimpla, yung paggamit ng ng low quality files for audio files specifically.
They've already, while they recorded this commercial, recorded it at top audio levels, almost to the point of distortion. How could they make this even louder? You compress the signal, and then during mastering, you crank that up. Now, we need to go back to that early 80s period that I've already identified. It was during that time period that a war started. And you know, just like a lot of police actions, that war never seemed to end. Of course, I'm talking about the loudness wars. You see, it was right around that time.
Yan, ang kanyang minimension na loudness wars specifically is the volume wars. So, isipin nyo na lang, low quality audio file, tapos ika-crank mo yung volume. What do you expect? Sabog. Distorted in a bad sense. Now, there is a distortion in a good sense. Pero there is also in a bad sense. Kaya, ngayon, napansin nyo, meron kayong MP3 na papatugtugin. No? And then, maganda yung quality ng MP3. There are also MP3 audio files na magagandang quality. Audio is not compromised. Pero there are lots of MP3 audio files na pinapalit kasi nila yung file, and pag yun ang pinatugtog mo on a on uh, a uh, hindi malakas, mahina lang, maganda pa rin yung quality. Pero, pag trip na trip mo yung kanta, sinaksak mo yung USB mo, no? And then ang pinagsaksakan mo is on an amplifier with, let's say, at least 50 watts na speaker. Yan. So pwede mong patugtugin ng malakas. You will already notice na distorted meron ng distortion sa sa high niya, even sa uh, low quality niya. So 'di ba, as I have explained to you earlier, sa yung equalizer, merong high, treble, mid, low, yan. Usually nasa high, it's either nasa high or nasa low. Yun ang nako-compromise, kasi yun ang, lalo na yung low, kasi yun ang kailangan na malaki ang file. So nawawala yung lowness, yung bass feeling ng song, pangit pakinggan. Pangit pakinggan.
Time period that music was being transferred and sold digitally. It was at
So, yun nga. Kasi nga, it is being commercialized as a digital product na ngayon. So, MP3s are yun nga ang pangit na naging evolution of music eh. Which is, in my personal opinion, ang one theory why today's music sucks, because hindi the end user, yung tayong mga listener, no? Hindi natin naririnig yung pagkabuo ng kanta. Kasi nga, sabi nga niya sa video na to, there's no difference with rock, with pop, or with pop rock. Walang difference yan. Iko-compare mo si Michael Jackson with the Police, or with U2, or with Metallica, or with the Prince. They're all good. 'Di ba? Magagaling sila. They have talent. Ang problema lang is yung nag-compromise na lahat yan sa quality ng music, quality ng equipment, quality ng pag-record nung mga songs. There is still talent. Ang problema pa nga ngayon, take note, no? Pati talent nawawala na. So even talent na nawawala. So kahit sino na lang na pwedeng kumanta, kahit sino na lang na, let's say with tune, ako yun. Marunong akong kumanta, hindi ako magaling kumanta, but I can give out a song in tune, no? Pero wala akong tremolo, wala akong breathing technique, wala akong talent to sing. Ang gagawin ng producer with all the technology now, like auto-tune, syempre, meron akong flats sa songs ko. No? Meron akong flats sa songs ko. What technology can do is to correct yung flats ko or yung sharps ko when I am singing. Minsan on the spot pa nga nako-correct yan. So, ganun.
At this time period that record sales almost disappeared overnight, and the CD became our main media for recorded music. Now, once you get a music signal into a computer digitally, there's a whole lot you can do to increase the volume. And with so many classic bands having their older albums being transferred to CD, a war happened. You see, a lot of the newer sounds achieved by newer bands in the 80s were getting a much hotter source. And so a lot of consumers, when they would put on older albums, would notice the volume drop. Put on David Bowie's Let's Dance, wonderful. Put on one of your favorite Moody Blues records, and all of a sudden everything sounded much more tame. Now, no doubt, remastering some of these older recordings
Ayan. Meron siyang term na remastering. Okay? Yun ang nangyayari ngayon. One is to revive the album, an old album, i-remaster mo yun. Ang problema is yung nagre-remaster kung papaano niya i-remaster yan. So, kailangan alam niya ang basis ng sound for dun sa, let's say, yung equalizer nga. So, starting sa bass, mid, treble, high, yan. Yung gaano kababa yung kanta or gaano kataas. When we say low, gaano kababa, each song meron siyang bass sound, no? Each song meron siyang treble sound. Remastering those songs, no? Pag nag-remaster ka, kailangan ibabalance mo ulit 'yun para maganda yung product ngayon at yun nga mabebenta mo on a digital format, on an acoustic format, yun. Buti sana kung may plaka pa rin ngayon na ginagawa eh. I doubt kung meron nga. Kung meron man, ano ang quality nung vinyl record na yan, 'di ba? Or yun nga, during the 80s, which Sony had made it hip, yung cassette tape. Kasi yun ang pinaka high quality magandang sound for each song recorded sa 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 media. Ganun. And then yun nga, dumaan na yung CD and everything was history pagdating sa ano.
Had to occur, and volume levels did need to be brought up. But really, if you think about it, what were these morons thinking? Did they not know that all of us at home had volume knobs? But then things got out of hand. All of a sudden, they were increasing the volume on these re-releases to the point of distortion. Now, distortion by itself is not a bad thing. Rock and roll has used distortion to good effect always. But we're talking about a distortion over the overall sound. And then we started hearing some of the engineers and producers as well as artists in the early 2000s using an almost distortive approach to some of the basic tracks before it ever got on to the final stereo mix. This creates that muddy sound that you could swear. It just must be your imagination when you listen to some of the newer tracks in music today. Another approach is the overuse of bass and drum machines. You know, the use of drum machines have become so prevalent that they've actually learned to build in algorithms for the machines to make an occasional mistake so they don't.
What he is trying to explain here is yung algorithm na sinasabi niya is yung syncopation ng isang drum pattern. Siyempre, magpe-play ka ng drum pattern and then tugs 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 ganun lang, 'di ba? Which is kung gagawin mo sa drum pads 'yan, madali lang. Pero para kang nakikinig na ng robot, para kang nakikinig ng bot. Parang parang 'di ba? Electronic kaya nga diyan na lumabas ang Fundamentals of Electronic Music 101 yan.
Sound so robotic. So far as I'm concerned, the algorithms are not working. And then there's the overuse of bass. You know, a lot of times the bass that you're hearing on a lot of the newer music isn't even from a bass guitar. A lot of it is just played on keyboards with a pre-patched.
Guilty ako dyan. When I recorded a song for my alma mater during the centennial celebration of St. Louis, yung bass na yan, no? Which is hindi nanggaling sa bass guitar talaga. Ang ginamit ko was a Casio keyboard. Pero maganda kasi ang bass sound ng Casio.
Bass sound to sound like a stringed bass. Again, bass is a very important aspect. You know, the Beatles were very frustrated. Some of their earlier albums, they weren't getting the bass response that some.
If you're still here sa live stream, thank you for watching. I hope na nakaka-relate kayo. If you are going to watch this later, please don't forget to subscribe in my YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to like this video for both Facebook and YouTube.
some of the artists in America were getting. Paul especially would work with the engineers, George Martin, and even switching his famous violin bass to his Rickenbacker, all to get a much better, deeper bass sound. But what do we have in today's music? We have this driving, overwhelming bass that drowns out all of the other instrumentation. You wonder why they even bothered to put keyboards in the background. You can't hear it. And then, of course, you've got the great demon of music, auto-tune. Now, auto-tune first came to the public awareness with Cher's song Believe. And of course, she used auto-tune in that song, whether you like it or not, as a creative device. But don't worry, soon every monkey in the zoo was doing exactly what she did. But then it settled down and they started using auto-tune for a very specific reason. Now they could have artists who couldn't quite sing as well as artists in the past and correct their vocals while still in the studio.
Wala nang talent. Yun lang ang ibig niyang sabihin dito.
You can even use auto-tune live. I swear, all of the footage I saw with Paul McCartney in his tour here this summer, I heard auto-tune. You musicians out there, give it a listen, you can hear it. Now, I know, everybody will say, why do you hate auto-tune? After all it does is correct mistakes. Don't you want the very best product?
Isa yan. Don't you want to hear if you were an avid follower of yun nga, ang kanyang artist was Paul McCartney. If you knew Paul McCartney from the from the first album sa kanyang pagkanta, and you are a follower talaga na hanggang ngayon, 'di ba? Mas maganda atang mas gusto mong pakinggan yung voice niya kahit hindi perfect. 'Di ba? Kasi first is you've trusted yung artist na yun kasi na-touch ka sa mga una niyang songs, and then parehas kayong nag-evolve, and then maganda pa rin ang tingin mo sa kanya hanggang sa talagang naging follower ka to the point na even all you want to know everything, kahit mistakes niya, it doesn't bother you kasi by nature, lahat naman tayo tumatanda eh. So even ang voice natin, expected as a singer, 'di ba? Makikita mo, uy, maganda pa rin ang boses niya. Pero kahit ba pangit, uy, ganyan na siya kumanta ngayon. 'Di ba? But I'm still an avid fan. Parang ganun, 'di ba? Ang problema ngayon, they are trying to correct pa rin kahit ba matanda ka na kung ganyan na ang boses mo, 'di ba? Hindi mo na kailangan i-correct. Pakita mo na this is me now. Syempre with the musician probably takot sila na mawalan ng ano for the new listener, 'di ba? No, let's say they have their reasons pero what do you expect with Sir Paul McCartney or with artists who are still here with us performing? Bakit si uh, from the last concert of Metallica, 'di ba? Si lead singer niya, ganun pa rin yung kumakanta pa rin siya without autotune, and you understand na ganun nga ang boses niya ngayon. As long as he performs for Metallica, with Metallica, 'di ba? Under the name of Metallica, rock and roll pa rin siya, 'di ba?
Well, yes, I do. Here's the problem with auto-tune. It takes away vocal approach. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about. You have the example of Frank Sinatra. I did it my way. How he dived down on those notes. That's his vocal delivery. That's his vocal approach. How about those screams and screeches and squelches that you hear on Hey Jude by Paul McCartney? Those Judah, Judah, and they go screeching out. Now, both of these singers are two of the greatest singers in the 20th century, if you ask me. And it was their approach, their delivery, how they attacked a note that became artistic. Now you've got clowns singing into a microphone, and all I can say is if they can't carry a tune, how would they even begin to know anything about approaching a vocal line and how to deliver it? We're missing out on something here, people. Now, auto-tune, the use of keyboard bass playing and electronic drums along with compression, all of these things that I've discussed can be very useful tools in the recording session, but people have gotten lazy. These days they follow the simple format, big thick bass lines to jar your car. Have you
Ayun, actually, by experience din. Probably it's not being lazy kasi nga siguro sa third world sa amin dito ano, sa aming third world country, no. We'd rather work, 'di ba? Even famous artists dito sa Philippines, no. Kung maaari magkaroon sila ng second job nila just so makapag-survive sila sa ano, makapag-survive sila sa mundo sa nangyayari ngayon with the pandemic that happened, 'di ba? Talagang nawala ang artist, nawala ang ano. Although there are musician innovators which use uh, technology as their platform. Kaya yun, kanya-kanyang engagement lang naman 'yan eh.
Have you ever noticed how some people have the greatest speakers in their car, but they have an inexpensive car, and it's the car that rattles? They don't hear it inside. It's the rest of us in the neighborhood who hears the rattling of the entire car around those speakers. And then there's this proclivity of the general audience these days willing to let shows like America's Got a Toilet inform them on what is good music. We get a lot of same old.
Yeah, let's say yan, yung AGT, yeah. There are artists talaga na who show yung talent talaga nila, which is okay. Ayan, from the point of view of the judges, 'di ba? But not all judges, especially dun sa mga franchises, know talent.
Same old effects, and people dial in this stuff instead of spending weeks searching for new sounds that they could record on their own. Or what about Max Martin or Lucas Gottwald? Never heard of these two? Well, these two are responsible for the vast majority of top 10 songs that you've heard for a decade or longer. These are what I consider to be dial-up writers. So what do you have? You've got a horrible little TV show carting out homogenized singers who look good. They fix everything in the studio. They dial up all of their effects and sounds that you've heard many times in many other recordings. They call up one of these new Lennon and McCartneys, then record this same old mishmash all over again. And then the record companies pump it out to us, you see? It's not just on the radio anymore like the good old days. It's in the malls. It's in the stores in the malls. It's in commercials, on TV, even here on YouTube. But don't worry, just in case you missed it there, go to the movies and you'll find one of those songs in a soundtrack somewhere. You know, this reminds me of one of those magicians who uses hypnotism in their show. That's exactly what they're doing to us, folks. They're hypnotizing us into accepting the same old, same old. And what has it created? It's created a listening audience with a herd mentality. Rare is the individual willing to explore and search for new music to expand their own personal musical palette. And for a whole group of people today,
Tama yan eh, 'di ba? Nasa production na eh, yung ano eh, yung kagandahan eh, not already sa talent. Which I heard from one of my musician friends na production is more important kaysa yung pagtugtog. which dun ako na, I'm sorry, bato-bato sa langit, pero yun talagang hindi ko na ano, you're my friend here in Facebook, pero I'm sorry. For me, talent pa rin is very important over production. Or let's say, kaya nga from the start, let's say they have an equal foot with gigs, with concerts, with mini events, di ba? There is an equal amount of effort done for the production, an equal foot for the talent na magper-perform in front, okay? And zip, no comment.
Music is nothing more than what they hear in the background while they play their favorite computer game. With dial up effects, dial up sounds, dial up vocals, and dial up writers, there's no competition out there anymore, is there? You know, it's competition that really breeds growth in any artistic form. I think of Jimmy Page, the Beatles owning the world. And as they're ready to fold up, he's ready there to take on the old lion and take on the job of being the leader of the pride. All of the space in so much of the music today is gone. It's all crowded, and it's a crowd sound for a crowd audience. All right, so that about wraps up my thoughts for the video.
Yan. So, people of the Philippines, people of the world, so I hope naintindihan nyo on the music side na itong nangyayari nga, there is something happening why some people, di ba? Some people pa rin, hindi na nagmo-motivate ang music sa kanila. So probably dahil nga sa output ng sound as what Sir Michael Noland has explained, sa tingin nyo, do you affirm, di ba? Or do you have reactions sa napanood nyo ngayon? I hope we find something which will make music be our motivator ulit. Kaya nga, minsan ako rin, I tend to discover ambient music because there is a scientific basis pag nagpe-play ako ng mababa, nagpe-play ako ng medyo mid to papuntang high pitch sounds, because it is something for our health and for our mental wellness. So I hope na may natutunan kayo dito sa live stream na to. Again, I want to acknowledge yung mga pumunta dito sa live stream. Thank you sa inyong support. To those who are going to watch later, thank you. If you're going to finish this video, please comment down. Okay ba ang audio? Okay ba ang ano? This is my first reaction video and I hope na meron tayong matutunan about music, and this is my advocacy. It's all about music because our life is all about music. And again, this is Jeff, your music ambassador all and for Discover Soothing Music. I will see you in the next live stream. Don't forget to like, share this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and press the notification top bell for any updates. I would like to acknowledge my Kumu friends. Thank you for coming. YouTube friends, thank you for coming. And to my Facebook friends, I hope to see you in the next video.